Have you ever wondered why some people seem to learn insanely fast, while others struggle for months just to understand the basics? Why one person can learn a new language in a year, master a skill in months, and completely change their life, while another person stays stuck, repeating the same information over and over again? It looks like talent. It looks like intelligence. But the truth is far more interesting than that, because the difference is not talent. It's not genetics, and it's definitely not luck. The real difference is a hidden method of learning that almost nobody talks about. A method used by elite performers, top students, special forces operators, and even some of the most successful entrepreneurs in the world. And the strange part is, once you understand this method, you realize school taught you almost the exact opposite. Think about this for a second. You spent years in school, thousands of hours studying, memorizing, repeating information, reading textbooks, listening to lectures. But how much of that information do you actually remember today? Probably less than 10%. Maybe even less. That's not because you're bad at learning. It's because the system itself is inefficient. Traditional studying is built around exposure to information. But real learning doesn't come from exposure. Real learning comes from friction, from struggle, from forcing your brain to retrieve information under pressure. And once you understand this shift, everything changes. Let me show you something fascinating. Imagine two students preparing for the same exam. The first student reads the same chapter 5 times, highlights sentences, watches videos, reviews, notes, feels productive, feels confident. The second student reads the chapter once, closes the book, and immediately tries to recall everything from memory. They struggle, they forget things, they feel slow, they feel uncomfortable. And guess what happens a week later? The second student remembers far more. Why? Because the brain doesn't strengthen memory through repetition. It strengthens memory through retrieval. This principle is called active recall, and it's one of the most powerful learning mechanisms ever discovered. When your brain tries to pull information from memory, it sends a signal that says, "This information is important." Strengthen the neural connections. Make it easier to access next time. But when you simply reread information, your brain gets tricked. It feels familiar, it feels easy. But the memory pathways remain weak. It's like walking past the gym every day versus actually lifting the weights. Only one of those builds strength. Now, here's where things get really interesting. Elite learners don't just use active recall. They combine it with something even more powerful, something called spaced repetition. And this is where learning speed multiplies dramatically, because the brain forgets information in a predictable pattern. Right after you learn something, your brain begins to forget it. Fast. Within hours, a huge percentage disappears. Within days, even more fades away. This pattern is known as the forgetting curve. But if you review information at the exact moment your brain is about to forget it, the memory becomes dramatically stronger. Imagine planting a seed. If you water it once, it dries out. But if you water it at the right intervals, the roots grow deeper every time. Spaced repetition works the same way. Instead of cramming information repeatedly in one day, you review it at strategic intervals. Day 1, Day 3, Day 7, Day 15. Each time the brain rebuilds, the memory stronger than before. And the crazy part, with this method, information can stay in your memory for years. Now, here's something most people don't realize. The fastest learners in the world are not the people who study the most hours. They're the people who create the most learning intensity per minute. Think about professional athletes. They don't just casually practice for 10 hours straight. They train in focused bursts, high intensity, high concentration, maximum effort, then they rest. The brain learns exactly the same way. Long study sessions often create mental fatigue, but shorter, intense learning sessions can create faster results. Let me tell you a quick story. A few years ago, a medical student named Scott Young became famous for completing the entire MIT computer science curriculum in about 1 year without attending MIT. That program normally takes 4 years. Thousands of students struggle through it. But Scott used a radically different approach. Instead of passively consuming information, he forced himself to solve problems constantly. Every concept was immediately applied. Every idea was tested. Every gap in understanding was exposed instantly. And because of that, his learning speed exploded. This reveals another powerful principle. The brain learns best when information is connected to action. Reading about a skill is slow. Doing the skill is fast. Think about learning to ride a bicycle. You could read books about balance for months. You could watch tutorials, study diagrams, analyze physics. But the moment you get on the bike, your brain starts learning 10 times faster because action creates feedback. And feedback is the fuel of learning. Now, here's the classified method that combines everything we've talked about so far. It's simple, but incredibly powerful. Step 1. Learn the concept quickly. Don't aim for perfection. Just understand the basic idea. Step 2. Immediately test yourself. Close the material and try to explain it from memory. Step 3. Apply the concept in a real problem or real scenario. Step 4. Schedule spaced repetition reviews over the next days and weeks. This loop creates something extraordinary. Every cycle strengthens the memory, deepens the understanding, and increases your speed. But there's another layer that separates good learners from elite learners, and it's something called the Feynman technique. Named after the legendary physicist Richard Feynman, had a simple rule for learning anything. If you can't explain it in simple language, you don't really understand it. So whenever he studied a concept, he would pretend he was teaching it to a child. No complicated words, no technical jargon, just simple explanations. And if he got stuck, that was the exact point where his understanding was incomplete. This technique forces clarity because the brain often hides confusion behind complex language. But when you try to simplify an idea, every weakness becomes obvious. Suddenly you see the gaps, the missing pieces, the assumptions you didn't question. And once those gaps are fixed, your understanding becomes solid, almost unbreakable. Now imagine combining everything we discussed. Active recall, spaced repetition, intense practice, real-world application, the Feynman technique. Suddenly learning becomes a completely different experience. Instead of slow progress, you start seeing rapid breakthroughs. Instead of forgetting information quickly, you retain knowledge for years. Instead of feeling overwhelmed, you feel momentum. And this is exactly why the world's top performers learn differently from everyone else. Top chess players don't just memorize moves. They analyze thousands of game positions. Top musicians don't just read theory. They practice difficult passages repeatedly with feedback. Top entrepreneurs don't just study business books. They build things, test ideas, fail quickly, adjust quickly. Their learning is active, aggressive, constantly evolving. But there's still one final secret that accelerates learning even further. And it might surprise you. Emotion. The brain remembers emotional experiences far more strongly than neutral information. Think about moments in your life that you remember clearly. Big achievements, embarrassing mistakes, intense conversations, emotional moments create stronger neural encoding. That means if you attach emotion to learning, curiosity, excitement, challenge, the memory becomes far stronger. This is why storytelling is such a powerful learning tool. Facts alone are easy to forget, but stories stay with us because stories activate multiple regions of the brain: visual imagination, emotion, cause and effect, human connection. When information is wrapped inside a narrative, the brain processes it as a meaningful experience instead of random data. Now pause for a second and think about your own learning habits. How many times have you studied something passively, hoping it would stick? How many hours were spent reading, highlighting, reviewing, without real retention? What if those same hours were used with high-intensity learning methods instead? What if every study session forced your brain to retrieve information, solve problems, and teach concepts? That shift alone can multiply your learning speed. Not 2 times faster, not 3 times faster, sometimes 10 times faster. And the best part is, this method works for almost anything. Languages, programming, business skills, academic subjects, creative skills, even social abilities. Imagine learning a new language and immediately forcing yourself to speak from memory. Imagine learning programming and solving real coding problems every day. Imagine studying psychology and explaining concepts to friends as if you were teaching a class. Suddenly, the learning process becomes alive, dynamic, challenging, addictive, and something interesting begins to happen. Confidence grows because confidence isn't built from motivation. It's built from competence. When your brain repeatedly proves that it can understand complex ideas, recall information quickly, and apply knowledge in real situations, your belief in yourself changes. You stop seeing learning as something difficult. You start seeing it as a skill you control. Now think about the long-term impact of that shift. In a world where technology changes rapidly, where industries evolve every few years, where new opportunities appear constantly, the most valuable skill you can possibly develop is the ability to learn fast. Because if you can learn faster than the environment changes, you become unstoppable. And that is exactly why some of the most successful people in the world obsess over learning systems. They read constantly. They test ideas. They experiment. They build mental models. They refine their thinking. Not because they love studying, but because fast learning creates an unfair advantage. So here's a challenge for you. For the next 7 days, stop studying the way you normally do. Replace passive learning with active recall. Test yourself constantly. Explain what you learn in simple language. Apply concepts immediately. And review the information using spaced repetition. At first, it will feel harder. Your brain will resist because real learning requires effort. But after a few days, something incredible will happen. Your memory will improve. Your understanding will deepen. And learning will start to feel faster than ever before. And once you experience that shift, you'll never want to go back to the old way of learning again. Because when you finally understand how the brain truly absorbs knowledge, studying stops feeling like a chore. It starts feeling like a superpower.